Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Attract and Stand Out podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Holly, and I am so excited you're here. We are back recording episodes for the show, and I cannot wait for the lineup that we have this fall. And I'm excited for today's conversation because I have with me I knew I was going to say it wrong as soon as I went to go say it. Melvika, I'm going to let you say your last name for me because
Jethmalani.
Jethmalani. I was almost so close and brave to say it, and then I was like, my tongue got stuck, and that's how I roll. My tongue does not roll the way that I need it to when I want it to. So, Melvika, thank you so much for being here on the show. Thank you for
Thank
sharing your last
you.
name with us. And hi, how are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here. Before we dive into our conversation and really get deep into who you are and what you do, like take us back a little bit. Take us back on your journey. How did you come into the work that you do today?
So I have spent most of my career in human resources, but I didn't start out in HR. I started in accounting and finance. So I don't consider myself a traditional HR leader because of my background and training. I bring a very data-oriented and analytical approach to everything that I do from a people perspective. So my core skill set is I help organizations draw insights out of data and analytics to inform their people strategy and their people decisions. So I started my HR career in recruiting, then went on to do some talent management and HR strategy work. I was a business partner for a while, and then eventually moved into my first CHRO role, and then went on to become a CHRO three times in three different organizations, all three private equity backed. And so now I run my own human capital advisory firm, and I specialize in working with private equity backed companies on all things people. I'm also an executive coach, and I'm a speaker and writer. And again, I speak and write on all things people, but lately I've been talking a lot about AI and writing a lot about AI because that is the hot topic that
Yeah.
everyone wants to talk about. So all of that is my 9 to 5, and my 5 to 9 is I run a community called Women Shaping AI.
Amazing. I love that you pivoted in your career and really dove into the CHRO role. Um, my background was in HR training and development and big box retail when I first left high school, got a job in retail, and really fell in love with the HR side of the retail businesses. And so I love that that's something that you fully dove into. I miss those days sometimes. I don't really, I'm definitely glad I have my own business now, but I always think back to the retail management days, especially when you think of like Black Fridays and the busier times and seasons of year. Something about that time like kind of made my eyes light up like it was Christmas morning. Like it's just such a fun experience. And I
Mhm.
remember all of the amazing people that I got to work with at that point as well, and how it actually helped shape me, I think, into becoming a business coach and an executive leadership coach because I found that love and that gift of really getting curious and asking questions and helping people on their journey, wherever it led. Some of it led to promotions internally. A lot of my employees, were going to college and they were going into other types of careers, but it was just a lot of fun. And I got to meet so many amazing people at that point in in time.
My very first job when I was 16 was in retail. I worked at Best Buy in the Geek Squad. Uh,
Ooh.
and so similar to you, I that the holiday time when you can't take any time off, it's crazy, it's wild,
Yeah,
right? It was always an interesting time of year. And yes, I met some very interesting people in retail as well.
absolutely. Funny, my first um, leadership position was with Best Buy. I worked my way up from, as I call, pregnant cashier, pregnant right out of high school with my
Mhm.
oldest son, and got in promoted from cashier all the way up to operations manager before I left Best Buy, and then transferred over to Gap. So we have lots in common there.
We do, yes.
We probably could have some fun stories. I still use
Mhm.
my Best Buy employee ID number for like all kinds of passwords and fun little things. I always laugh. It's still part of my DNA and part of who I am.
There you go.
So tell me a little bit about your background. Like I know you said that you pivoted into the HR world. What was it about the HR side that really started speaking to you and calling you in?
I feel like HR is uniquely positioned to look across the organization and have kind of a 360-degree view of every function, every role, the full, the org design, the operating model. But also, I think HR is the only function that is constantly trying to find that balance between the needs of the business and the needs of the employees and trying to strike that balance. And I feel like that's a very interesting position to be in. And when I entered into HR, now people analytics and data science are very much embedded into all aspects of HR. But when I got into it, it was very much a soft and fuzzy and all the feels kind of profession. And so I enjoyed bringing some of that rigor to the work that I did. So that's why I got into HR, and I felt like I could bring a different and unique perspective given my training.
Yeah. When you look back, is there any defining moments or challenges at any point in your career that really shaped how you approach leadership and your people strategy today when you're working with the clients that you work with?
So many challenges. I could talk about them for
There's probably a
hours.
million.
Yeah, and some hard won lessons. I think so. I'll give you a couple. One of the moments that I learned the most from was I was in a consulting role. And then I took an in-house HR business partner role. And when you're a consultant, you are typically brought in by some very senior people, usually the CEO, the board is involved. So you already have the blessing of everyone to do the work that you want to do. So your job is to go in and find the problems and solve the problems. And so I kind of applied that same mindset when I went in-house. And it was a little bit of a rude awakening for me because I remember I walked into the CFO's office one day and I said, I've looked at your team's engagement scores and turnover, and this is where I think we can improve. And these are some ideas I have. And her reaction was, who are you? Like, who asked you to do this work? Why are you talking to me about this? And she essentially kicked me out of her office. And at first I thought, wow, that was really mean and she's so rude. But in retrospect, I understood and realized that um, you don't have the buy-in when you're in-house. You don't have the buy-in that you do as a consultant. You need to build that buy-in and you need to help people see what you're seeing. And you need to sort of bring them along on that change journey and you need to influence people. So I learned how to influence people. That was maybe not the best interaction at the time and not the best experience, but I think it was an important experience that I needed to have in order to grow. So that was one thing. The other thing that I learned pretty early on in my career is that your hard work will only take you so far. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of saying, well, my work speaks for itself. And they don't understand the investments that they need to make in relationships, in understanding the organizational politics. And I think every organization has politics, right? You have the decision makers on paper, and then you have the real decision makers, you have the people who have the CEO's ear, you have the people who are the most influential. And so you need to be able to navigate those relationship dynamics regardless of where you are, in addition to working really hard. I think only relying on your work product to speak for itself is not smart. So those are a couple of the things that I learned pretty early on.
Yeah. Uh, and like you started, like you alluded to, there's that piece, like we learn those lessons because they actually help shape us and guide us into the type of people that we need to be to show up in the role that we're in. And I know some of those hard, well, I'll speak for myself, like those hard knock situations that life has brought to me at different points. Like those have been some of the biggest things that have shifted who I am today and allow me to show up and even study and focus and learn on the topics that are so important to me that I can then go and feed to other people and help support them and encourage them in those ways. So sometimes I'm like, why did this life lesson happen to me? Or oh, I wish I knew now what I needed, or I wish I knew then what I know now is what I'm trying to say. Like,
Mhm.
like sometimes I think like younger Darlene, if only I had some of the knowledge that I have today, like it would have been so much easier. But I also don't think I'd be who I am today and be where I'm at today had I not gone through those situations.
Absolutely. And then you learn how to pass on your hard-won lessons and your knowledge and your wisdom, right? So now when I work in an executive coaching capacity, a lot of people want to work with me and retain me because I've been through those experiences and I can tell them what's worked and what hasn't and what are some of the things they should look out for. So it's come full circle and I can now share with people what has worked for me. And I think that's a gift that I have to give to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're at an interesting time too when we think about organizations and our team members. Like we've all lived through a pandemic. We've all worked from home, home at different points. We've been out in, in the organization. I'm curious, like, what are you seeing right now as far as like employee engagement and morale and culture activity? Like, how are you really having to go in and really help support the organization to shift the culture and make sure that you're creating the right environment so that everybody feels like it's a win-win and like that employee engagement can really stay high?
We are in a very interesting time right now, and it's a little bit worrying in some ways because Gallup has reported that employee engagement is at a historical low. So it's continued to go down over the past couple of years. It was already low, and now it's just over 20%. So if you think about that, the majority of the employee population across the globe is not engaged, and many people are actively disengaged. And I think that there are a few things that contribute toward that. One is what you said, which is the volume and pace of change only continue to accelerate. If you think of just the last 5 years, we've had a global pandemic, we've had social unrest, economic volatility, geopolitical tension and wars, climate disasters, and now, of course, the big one, AI. And I think that AI is in many ways amplifying the problem because you've got two types of CEOs that are emerging. One that's saying, how quickly can I bring in the AI agents and slash headcount and take cost out of the P&L? And the other one being, how can I augment the humans in my organization and make them better? And how can I upskill and reskill people and prepare them for the future? But that second category is very, very teeny tiny. Most CEOs have immense pressure from their boards and from their investors to cut headcount very, very quickly. Because if you look at most P&Ls, probably 60 to 70% of your OpEx is people related. So CEOs are looking to bring that down. And by the way, AI investments require a lot of capital, whether you're investing in compute or bringing in new tools, um, developing or fine-tuning models, developing or building your own AI tools internally. All of that requires money, and so you need to cut costs somewhere, because you typically only have a fixed pool. Your budget is your budget, and so CEOs are increasingly looking at the HR side of things because you and I may not agree with this, but they think of those things as nice to haves. So HR budgets, L&D budgets, et cetera, are the first things to be slashed. And so I think all of these kind of additional layers of complexity are adding to this problem of low employee engagement. And I think there's an employer-employee trust deficit in this moment. So to coming back to the second part of your question, when I work with CEOs and organizations, I'm really trying to get them to understand how can they build trust with their employees? How can they bring people along on this journey and help co-create the AI transformation with them and not have it be top down? So employees need to feel like this change is being done with them, not to them. And if CEOs are out in the media talking about how the AI agents are going to come in and take over everyone's jobs, and meanwhile they're expecting to go back to the office and expecting people to adopt AI and to cooperate and help the organization meet its objectives, that kind of doesn't, you can't reconcile those things. You're not going to get that adoption and trust and buy-in from employees. So I'm really working with them on the first principles before we even have the technology conversation.
Yeah, I remember when AI first came out, one of the posts I read, or I guess it was an article, was like the robots are coming, they're taking over the world, like we're losing our jobs. Like there was that whole, you know, frenzy of people who thought it was going to hurt them. And I think that most people are settling into AI now. We can see that it's a resource. It's not necessarily taking over everything. It's just giving us more ability to be strategic and to get information, and something that might have taken 4 hours before we can maybe do in 30 or 40 minutes by using it in a way that really supports us. With AI and the leaders that you've been working with, what do you see as how they're looking at it and streamlining it into the company to keep it to where they're showing the value versus making it be that, scary thing that people were so worried about?
I think most companies have not figured that out yet.
Mm.
Maybe some of the big ones have, but most companies are still, first of all, there's still a lot of companies that are lagging and have not even, there's a lot of companies that kind of have their head in the sand about it and have banned AI and are saying, we don't have AI in this company, it's too risky, it's too, there's data privacy issues, which of course there are. There's no denying that, but there's a lot of companies that are lagging. There are some companies that where it's like, don't ask, don't tell. You can use your little AI, your preferred frontier model on your iPad, and if you're copying and pasting the results into your work computer, we don't want to know, don't tell us. Then there's some companies that have a basic usage policy, but are still kind of in this mode of how quickly can we slash headcount. And then there's others that are more progressive and cutting edge. And I think that it's going to take a while before we have some stability. So just a couple days ago, MIT released a study that showed that 95% of Gen AI projects or pilots fail. And of course, the tech world has latched onto this headline to say, well, of course, we knew it, AI was overhyped, and we've invested billions in this technology and we're not seeing the return. Well, if you actually read the study, that's not what it's saying. What it's saying is that integration is better than innovation. So if you integrate AI into workflows, if you bring in and partner with the right vendors versus trying to build it yourself, you're much more likely to be successful. If you train people, if you focus on change management, if you bring people along on the journey and have them co-create with you, so all of the human stuff that you and I already know, you're much more likely to be successful. And so I think my takeaway is we need to not treat AI as an IT project. We need to treat AI as the interdisciplinary endeavor that it is and bring in, yes, the tech team, but also bring in the people team and the legal team to make sure you have great guardrails in place to protect people's data. You have great security guardrails in place. You need to have transparency so that people understand what data is being collected, how is it being used, how is my data being used to train these models, and what transparency can you give me about how these models are thinking? Are there model cards that you can share with me versus the AI just sort of being a black box and I don't know how it works and how it makes decisions, especially when it comes to things like hiring, promotion, compensation decisions. People want to know how these decisions are being made. So I think it's going to take us some time to figure all of that out. And I think we're just kind of in this ambiguous, uncertain phase right now.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I feel like I've listened in on quite a few panels, and I feel like AI is talked about in pretty much every networking group that I go to. Like it seems to come up in so many different topics, and it's always interesting to me to hear the different perspectives and see who's using it, how they're using it, and what that looks like. One of the panels I listened to recently, it was she's a professor at a college, and she was sharing how they were integrating it with students even because I can't even imagine. Like I have a 14 and 11-year-old at home, and then I also have two older boys, one's in college, and we were discussing, like I was asking him, like, are you allowed to use AI? Is it something that you can bring in? And like most of his professors are saying like it's not allowed at all. And like even my 14-year-old daughter, I was like, no, you need to think first. You need to learn how to like use your brain and write stuff before you go use AI because I know how easy it is to fall into it. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I just shared some ideas and some thoughts and some strategy tips and like it helped me create a whole plan or can help write an essay or whatever they're doing for their courses. And so it just always intrigues me. I'm like, I just want to learn more about it and I like to dive into it, but I also notice for myself when I use it too much how I start to rely on it. And it's almost like it's taking some of that, my ability to even like sit down and strategize. I don't use it really for content writing, but I use it for a lot of strategy. And I was like, is this a good or a bad thing? I can't decide. Some days I'm like, I love it. I can get in and get in and get the information I need. And then other times I'm like, am I leaning too much into it? Like, am I allowing myself to really be creative? And I miss those creative juices that personally come from me when I to sit down and have quiet space.
I think you're asking all the right questions. There was another study, I believe this one was also an MIT study. I think they only did it with like 50, some 54 students maybe. And they kind of found some of the things that you're talking about. So what they found is that they had three groups. They had a group of students that had to write an essay just using their brain. So that was the brain group. They had a group of students writing essays using the internet, uh, search engines, Google, etc. And then they had a group of students writing essays using AI. And what they found is for the AI group, their recall of information was the lowest. Their ability to connect the dots was the lowest. So they were, in short, they were not retaining and processing information in the same way. And so the richness of the learning was not there in the AI group. And so I think what you're experiencing and the questions you're asking yourself are the right ones. And I don't have kids, but I think as a parent too, I often think about entry level workers and how AI is impacting them, right? When we were growing up, at least in my case, I did a lot of sort of the grunt work early in my career, drafting job descriptions, drafting policies, scheduling interviews, right? And AI is doing so much of this work for us now. And so, how do you bring entry level workers up to speed and train them when so many of those tasks are disappearing entirely? And if entry level jobs start to diminish, which we're already seeing that entry level workers are having a hard time finding jobs, what does that mean for future talent pipelines and future leadership pipelines if so many of these entry level jobs are disappearing and companies like Meta are declaring we don't need junior engineers anymore, we only need senior engineers. But if you don't have the junior engineers, where do the senior
How do you
engineers?
get to senior? Yeah, it's really interesting. We could go deeper into this. I'm gonna pull us back up for some air, but it's just such an interesting concept, and I love that you're exploring it and really helping, individuals, but also organizations dive into it. How do we use it to our best ability? How do we get our teams on board so they don't feel scared? They're gonna like they still have job security. They still can be super highly engaged, but then they're also able to do their job more effectively, find
Mhm.
ways to get the result that they're looking for at a quicker pace so they can do more of the stuff that the company needs, like bringing in profits and growing the organization and having more of the conversations to really connect and grow. Uh, as we start to kind of wrap up, I'd love to hear like what are some upcoming things that you're doing in your business to really connect with organizations and like what are some like the fun, exciting things that you're looking forward to grow your business over the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah, so fortunately for me, a lot of the growth in my business comes through my direct network. But also, I do spend quite a bit of time networking and meeting new people. Just this morning, I was at an event here in Chicago, which was hosted by Microsoft and Ernst& Young, and they have an AI community, and they put up events. So I go to a lot of networking events. I'm constantly meeting new people not just to get access to leads or people who might be able to give me work, but also just to learn what are the people challenges and culture challenges that are on people's minds, etc. And then I also grow my business a lot through my content. I write for a couple of publications. I write on LinkedIn a lot, and people reach out to me. The first 6 months, I didn't get anything, but after the 6 month mark, I think the consistency paid off.
Yeah,
And people reach out to me all the time now and say, I read your thing, or I heard you speak at this event, and can we explore how we can work together?
that's awesome. All right, so let's go into some fun rapid fire questions. It's my favorite part because I like to know all the things. But if I could buy you a plane ticket and you could go anywhere in the world today, where would you go and why?
So Namibia has been on the top of my list for a while. I just have seen all these beautiful pictures of the orange sand dunes and the specifically where the ocean meets the desert, and I would love to go see that. So Namibia.
Okay, sounds gorgeous. Let's pack a bag. Let's go.
Hmm.
And then when you need to reflect, reset, and recharge, where do you like to go? What do you like to do? What are some like tools that you use to kind of reset yourself?
I step away from the screen. I make a lovely, delicious cup of coffee, and I just go to the window and look outside and just sort of go into a meditative state and just be present in the moment. Or if my husband is around and available, I love going for a walk with him.
Mm, beautiful. And are you binge watching anything on TV? Are you diving into a book lately? What do you kind of do in your spare time?
I read a lot. I read a lot. I spend probably 30 to 40% of my time consuming information, listening to podcasts, reading. Currently, I'm reading Ethan Mollick's book called Co-Intelligence. It's about AI. I've read some AI books that are not so great. This one I highly recommend. So, Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick.
Awesome. And in theme with the podcast, what does it mean to you when you think about attract and stand out? What does it mean?
To me, I think attract and stand out is about operating in a way that is consistent with your values. And I think it's about operating in a way and showing up in a way that is authentic to you and to who you uniquely are and your kind of unique edge and zone of genius, if you will. And I think that that's what makes you stand out. And when you stand out and you are authentically you, then you automatically attract, whether it's customers, partners, team members, followers, if you're a leader. So I would say that's what it means to me.
Beautiful. Malvika, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your journey and sharing some ideas and tips that maybe we hadn't thought about in the past. I know people are going to want to connect with you. Where should we send them?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn, Malvika Jethmalani. I think I'm the only one with that name out there. And you can also learn more about my work on my website, atvisgroup.com, atvisgroup.com. And if you want to join the community or learn more about the community, it's womenshapingai.com.
Amazing. And I will make sure all those links are down below in the show notes. So if you're driving, have no fear, you can come back and grab the links. And yeah, I just appreciate you taking the time to come on and share. I know AI is such a hot topic, and I know I'm constantly wanting to learn more. And then especially when it comes to organizations, like supporting them and making sure they have the right resources and tools. I think that's such a valuable time to make sure we know all the information and we're actually using it to the best of our ability.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap, everyone, for another episode of the Attract and Stand Out podcast. If you are new here, I'm so thrilled you're here. Please hit the follow, the plus sign, the subscribe button, whatever device you're on, and stay in touch with us. Reach out to myself or to Malvika and let us know what's your top takeaway from today's conversation. What are you going to implement? What questions do you have? We are here to support and guide you. And as always, remember, I believe in you. You're allowed to stand out. You're allowed to shine. You're allowed to be you. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.